Welcome everyone to what a very exciting class. We have a guest speaker. We're very honored to have him here. CISOWSKI works with Florida Realtors. Florida Realtors, as you guys know, is our Form Simplicity. Also our legal hotlines affiliated with NAR from Florida. Now he is our technology training manager. What are we going to speak about today is how to make it so simple that, and especially with Form Simplicity has so many tools that we don't know about. But we were just talking earlier with a realtor who's been around with us a very long time. She's been a realtor here in Florida for a long time, where we had to manually write these contracts in. And now when you guys know what you're doing, Form Simplicity is almost, and please correct me if I'm wrong or not, it could be like a database, like a CRM system as well too, because we're keeping our data files in there. We can follow up with our clients. I mean, keeping our data files is so important, you know. And there are so many shortcuts and technology questions that, well, you're the best at this. You are you're the master at this here, and we need to learn about it. You know, I mean, we could write up a file, an offer. I mean, in less than what, 5 minutes in some cases. You know, because it just auto-populates to all the other documents. And then from there, just send it out, e-sign it. Your client's going to be able to sign it from what? From their cell phones, from their laptop, notepads. I mean, he's got so much to offer. We're glad to have you here. We're very honored to have you here.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
I'll leave the stage here for you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for those who are here in attendance and for those of us who are online. I'd like to just talk about what we're going to be talking about here this morning for the next couple of hours, hopefully maybe less, depending on how many questions we have. And questions are, I would like to have some questions because I'm just a facilitator here, and any questions is always invited. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to go paperless using Form Simplicity. And just to give you a quick background of who I am, I've been in the real estate industry for over 40 years. I've been with Form Simplicity as or Florida Realtors as their training manager for going now into my 9th year. But before that, I was also a realtor for 7 years. I had my own real estate business. I was using Form Simplicity. I was using the e-sign program because I found that to be the simplest program for me based on what's out there in the marketplace. Also, I kind of feel that I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about Form Simplicity, and you might see that in my voice for the next couple of hours that we are here together. Because if I didn't like Form Simplicity, I wouldn't be up here teaching. And I feel that it is one of the really best programs that I was able to be affiliated with. Now, what I'm also going to do is, before we get off these slides, I do want to mention that all of you have the tech helpline. And you may want to write this number down because this is your go-to telephone number. That telephone number is 407-587-1450. And they are available to you 7 days a week, Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. and then on Saturday and Sunday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So you have 7 days of tech support. Give them a call on anything that I'm talking about here this morning. Also, we're going to have another session sometime next month, but we'll advertise that through your office, and you'll be able to attend that as well, hopefully. But give them a call on anything that we talked about here this morning. And also, if you have any questions on your own technology, like maybe you haven't gotten your emails for a couple of days, give them a call. They can remote into your computer with your permission, and that way you'll be able to get that all fixed and not have to worry about doing a service call. So I recommend that you do that. Also, before I get off the slide here too, you also want to let you know here that the Tech Helpline does have an app. So if you search for it in your App Store or Google Play Store, you can go ahead and download the Tech Helpline. And the way you see the Tech Helpline written up here, that's how you do your search for it. And then all you have to do is just register it and then start using it. You can chat with them. You can also dial the telephone number right off the bat from the app. All right, let's go ahead and get out of my PowerPoint here. And we're going to go right into Form Simplicity. And obviously, you all know how you all would get into Form Simplicity. I'm not going to go through every option that you all have. But most of us probably will go on through your MLS program. Some of us might want to also do it through your Real Estate Association website, so you all know how to access Form Simplicity. And once you do that, this is going to be the screen that you're going to be looking at. Now, one thing I do want to mention before I go further, you all have the Help Center, where if you click on the Help button on the top part of the Form Simplicity home screen, you get to check out the knowledge-based support articles where you can actually look at the step-by-step along with a screenshot of everything that you can do within Form Simplicity and e-sign. And also you can go ahead and check out our how-to videos. So if you have nothing to do this upcoming weekend, maybe this is a great opportunity for you to review the videos. And these are just very short vignettes, and that way you can check anything out on a specific feature and then also see the thing on e-sign and all the other features within Form Simplicity. And finally in here, I do want to mention here, and I was mentioning it to your broker here, that you can also check out our training section, because I do monthly training, especially here we're going to be doing, for example, on May 6th, if you're interested, I'm the one that's going to be doing the training where you can pick up 3 hours of CE credit. And it's going to be very similar to what we're talking about here, but this one here is a 3-hour session, and this might be something that might interest you. Also, I do 3 national Form Simplicity classes, because it's not just Florida, but we also have other clients. You can attend this by clicking on the 2-hour session here. We also do a monthly Form Simplicity feature, and that's usually about an hour. And then we also do a monthly 1-hour e-sign class. None of them are CE credited, but it's good information, and you can actually attend it as often as you need to. And these 3 options are always recorded. All right, so you don't have to worry about having to write things down for those particular sessions. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about something that I don't know if anybody here goes into, but I'm going to go ahead and go to preferences, because in here I'm going over a couple of things that you may want to go and check, because this is what makes you the mobile realtor on the go. All right, you always are busy, you don't have time to be in front of your laptop computer. Why not go ahead and have Form Simplicity work for you, right? Well, first of all, what I want to go ahead and do is take you down to the general settings. I'm not going to be able to have time to cover all of these sections, just the important thing, all right? The other stuff we can kind of do after online, or if you have any questions. But I recommend that you go into your general settings. How many people have gone into the general settings? Yeah, I think you do, because that way you have access where you can actually put your email signature that will automatically appear in Form Simplicity as well as in your e-sign session. So that way, once you set that up, all you have to do is just type it in. Now, you can actually copy and paste your email signature from your email client directly into here. The only thing is that when you do copy and paste, it's going to come out looking like plain text. All right, so it's not going to look like what you normally would have in your sent items in your client program. So what happens is that when you copy and paste that, or if you start typing it, then you just have to go in here and decide how you want your email signature to appear. So here, what I've done is I would highlight my email signature that I copied and pasted into here. I would select my font type. I can also select my font size. I can make it bolded, italic, underline. But in order for the color scheme to be here, because this, like if you sent me an email and I responded back to you, this is how it's going to look in my email signature. However, what you have to do, and I know it's painstakingly time-consuming, I would just highlight and then select the text color that belongs to that particular line. So this is actually my email signature that you would receive if I'm responding to you in an email. Now, at this time, you're not able to put in a company logo or a headshot. The reason for that is that early last year, we had an issue where when people were using the copy and paste with the logo, people would get error messages. So we decided to, instead of having people having headaches and having the tech helpline have headaches, we just basically disabled that feature. What they're planning on doing, from what I understand, is to go ahead and put a little button here for you to insert that logo, and that is, of course, not on their high priority list at this time. But that's something that is being worked on currently. But that would be something that you all would consider doing, because that's going to save you time when you're sending emails through Form Simplicity, when you're sending your e-sign session to your client. All of that is all preset. You don't have to worry about there. And then just remember, click on the Save Changes button here, and once you do that, then it is ready to go. You'll get that confirmation message appearing there. Another section I recommend that you all do, because don't you want to be, like I said in the beginning here, the mobile realtor on the go? How many of us would like to receive notifications when something occurs within a transaction? I would. I found this to be a cool feature, and going into the email notification section, I would go ahead and fill in all of these sliders here, because I wanted to get notified when a task was due. When I created a task in Form Simplicity, I would get that email notification. You also have the ability to assign a task to, let's say, a plumber or a home inspector, okay, any one of those, and they can actually complete the task. Now, fortunately, we're not going to have time to cover that here, but if it's something that we can do in a future session, we can also customize our future classes. But most importantly, and we'll show you how that would be done, I would like to know and be notified when a client or a buyer's agent may have a buyer's offer, sends it over to my transaction, and you can actually have that happen for you. So we'll talk about that when we get to the transaction section. But you have these other types of notifications. I recommend that you go ahead and turn them on. And then when you turn them on, like right now, let's say it was turned off and you clicked on it, it automatically will save it. So you don't have to click no save button here. You can also send it to an alternative email address, not to the email address that's listed up here in your account information. So anything that you want sent from your notifications here to a different email address and to another one here too, like maybe you may want to CC your administrative assistant or something like that. She can get it, or he can get that notification from us. But those are, I think, really, really important. Now, I'm going to go ahead and ask the question, since we have members here online, not online, but at least here in person. What is the only email that you get from eSign? What would be the only email notification that you get from eSign?
Renewal?
Huh?
Renewal?
No. When they signed the forms.
Oh, that they've already signed.
They've already come, right. So that's exactly the only email that you get. And then at the end, you click on that download documents, and then that way you have the signed documents, right? But how do you know when they started the session? What you all probably are doing, if you wanted to check the status of the signing, you're probably going into the transaction, right? And then you're going into your eSign session, and then you're checking out the status, right? But that's extra clicking that you don't need to do. There's a much simpler way, and I found this to be a very handy tool. So going back into the Preferences section, I'm going to go into eSign Preferences, and guess what? Look at this. We have the eSign 2.0 Preferences. Now, if we have new, I don't know if you have any new agents that may have joined recently, and if they didn't create any eSign sessions, they will not see this folder. The only time that they will see the eSign Preferences and Templates folder would be if they created a session, or at least they started a session, right? So basically, when I go and click over here, what's going to be turned off are these two notifications, because the only notification, as you all were saying, is that the session has been signed, and that's exactly what you all said. But wouldn't you like to get notified when they started the session, when they clicked on that review and sign button? I think you would. So then I would turn this notification on. Now, once they click on the review and sign button, and then they click on that second button that says start signing, and they're now viewing the form, then you want to go ahead and get notified here that that's exactly what they're doing. So you're going to get notifications before they have signed, that notification that shows that they signed. Yes?
I just have a question. I'm looking at my form simplicity, but I don't have that e-sign tab.
Do you have e-sign? Did you purchase e-sign?
No, I don't.
Okay. Yeah. So if you don't see the e-sign preferences and templates, either you didn't create a session or you didn't purchase it. Now, if you're interested in purchasing it, I will provide you with a promo code where you can save $10 off your first year. Okay? So I'll do that after class, if that's okay with you. And then you'll have time to play around with that. Okay? And also for the people who are online with us as well. So I will be happy to provide you that. I'll give it to the broker. I'll give it to the people here who have not signed up for e-sign. But those would be the things I would use and turn on. That way, when you have your portable device and you're out and about doing your real estate appointment, you can at least get notified when they started the session, when they viewed the form, and when they completed the session altogether. I found this to be very cool, in my opinion. When I learned this, just like you all are learning here, that if you didn't know about this, you would be having to keep going into that transaction and always doing that specific search for that status. Now, also, how many of us, when you receive the email of everyone signing the documents, how does that document look? It's a link. How many of us would prefer to see a PDF attachment instead of a link? And a lot of members, as well as customers, prefer that PDF physical because sometimes they can't find what they have to look for. So by turning on the attachments here, that means everyone who was involved in the signing process basically will get a PDF attachment. I think that's a cool thing too. And then also these markup tags where it says signature, initial, and date and time. These are your font sizes that are your default. Now, I was teaching a class last week when I was out of town, and I would recommend that if you're going to go ahead and make a certain size change, I would go no higher than 18 font. 16 is a good one, but 18 I wouldn't go no higher because in case the customer changes the font sizes, you don't want the signature to appear through the signature line. You want it on the signature line, so you don't want to make it too large. And of course, you can also go as high as 28, which you don't want to go that high. I would say no more than 16 to 18 is the range to go by. And then finally, you can select your own signature font, your own size. All right, so that's something that you can set up. But look at this. Remember when I showed you that in the general settings, we put in our email signature? Well, guess what? My email signature is also going to appear in e-sign. See, so that's going to let you know you got it showing up, and we'll show you that when we go and do an e-sign session. Okay? But that's all I'm going to talk about in here. Now, I don't know how your office works here, and you guys can help me out. But how many of us would prefer the e-sign process to go in sequential order? Like goes to signer 1 to signer 2. And like some members prefer that. But there may be a transaction where you probably may want to set it up where send it all at the same time. Well, right now, it's set up as a default to have it go to everyone at the same time for every single e-sign session. But if you don't want it to be that way for all of your sessions and you prefer to turn it on so that way it goes in sequential order, you can go ahead and do that, and that will always be the case. However, we'll show you this in e-sign, that there's a recipient ordering there where you can actually turn it off just for that one session. And that way, you can still do like you have it set up as your default. Now, and this is where the broker is going to have to help me out here. Is there something that your agents need to send the paperwork after everyone signs? Do they have to go to a certain person?
Not particularly. Yes, you can afterwards. It's going to go to the inspection company, title company.
Right, but anybody in your office though?
In the administrative.
Okay, so if you have an administrative assistant that receives all of the signed documents and everything, then that person's name can be entered here. So that way e-sign can automatically send it directly to that administrative assistant. So if that's what you prefer, you can always add that person. If you don't want to add that person, you don't have to. But I think that will save you having not to forget to email it to the administrative assistant. You can have e-sign send it out to you, for you.
Is that defaulted?
That could be your default.
Perfect.
So like if you have, let's say, and like for example, Lisa Carr is my administrative assistant, so, or my transaction coordinator, and so every time I create an e-sign session and it's completed, e-sign will automatically email it to her. I don't have to do anything. And that's a good thing because of the fact that I tend to forget things too. I'm just as human as everybody else here. So at least e-sign will kind of help that process along. And then once you set this all up, you're going to go ahead and click on the Save Changes button here. That's it. I'm going to go down here, down to the integration section, because I think this is a very important section for all of us. I'm going to ask the question again to the broker here. Do you all have KV Core?
We do, yes.
Okay, because...
Some do, some do not.
Okay, but I just want to let you know that because we had gotten a lot of requests through brokerages, and so we have a integration where you can use Form Simplicity now with KV Core. So I'll show you very briefly, because I don't have an account with KV Core, because it's an extra license that they have to pay. But if you go over to the Help Center, and it's going to show you how to do this, go down to the knowledge base, and then we're going to go down to the integration section. There's a help on how to set KV Core up to work with Form Simplicity. So if you click on the KV Core button here, it's going to tell you what it's all about. And KV Core is basically a CRM, all right? And you see that you have to go into KV Core, do a couple of setting changes here. And then you're going to go over here to Form Simplicity, open up that open up the integration, and then you copy and paste the API key. And then now you're going to see that here's your Form Simplicity transaction, and it's going to sync together with your KV Core. So it's a matter of you having to set this all up. So and if you need help with that, what you can go ahead and do is contact the tech helpline, or they'll probably direct you to the KV Core support. But at least you have that ability. And these are the things that you'll see. So if you're interested to set that up, contact the tech helpline, and they will definitely assist you with that. Since I don't know anything about KV Core, they're the ones that can help you out with that. Okay, how many of us have Google Drive? I'm assuming most of us should have Google Drive. Well, notice here, anything that's Google related, all of these are all turned on, because now by turning it on here, I don't have to worry about signing in every time I go into pull up my Google Drive. I can activate it right here. So all you have to do, and I'll just do it for one of the accounts, I'm not going to do it for all of them, is all you have to do is click on your Google Drive button, and then all you have to do is sign into your account, and then go into your real estate account, and then now it's turned on. So now I don't have to sign in to my Google anymore. I'm already signed in forever until I decide to take it off. Anytime I'm in a transaction, I need to retrieve a file out of Google Drive, I just have to pull it in. That's it. I don't have to sign in any longer. Form Simplicity also has the ability to import your contacts. And we'll show you how to import your contacts from your Gmail account, for those of us who have that. But most importantly, we also have the ability to sync with your Google Calendar. So by activating this, which is already turned on now, but if you haven't turned this on, then what you have to remember is that once you turn it on here, any transactions that you create starting today, once you turn it on today, anything from this date forward, any new transactions will automatically sync with your Google Calendar. However, if you have any transactions that you've created before you activated that, those will not sync. The only time that they will sync is you have to update the transaction. Once you update the transaction, then it will get synced with Google Calendar. And if you create any tasks in a Form Simplicity transaction using the task management tool, then basically those would also appear here. So I'm going to show you briefly here. I don't use Google Calendar, but just to show you what it looks like, I use this just to teach Form Simplicity. But let's say I added a transaction a couple of months ago. So in your Google Calendar, you're going to see that your start date for this transaction is whatever, February 14th. Okay, so that is going to be the start of that transaction. Now, what you can also see here too, because obviously there's going to be an expiration date for that transaction, mine's going to expire on April 30th. Now here you see the listing end date. However, you don't want to have it notify you 30 minutes before it's going to expire. You're going to have to change your notification, right? Because if you let it go, you're not going to have a chance to extend that listing, extend the transaction. So I would recommend that you go ahead and bring it down to weeks from minutes, and then maybe make that 30, maybe 3 weeks. So it'll be like 3 weeks before it expires. But you have to go in here and do that yourself because it's not going to do it for you. And then once you change that, remember to hit the Save button. So that's where your Google Calendar can come into play. And of course, I created several tasks in my past classes over the past several years, and therefore you can see I'm going to place a sign on the front yard. I want to go ahead and get notified maybe a couple of days before, just to make sure that it is on track to be scheduled to have a sign placed on the front yard. Okay, so that's something that you can go ahead and set up there. But that's the purpose of setting up Google Calendar, just for that purpose there. Any questions here? No? Good. Also, we have here, for those of us who use Dropbox, you can also sync with your Dropbox as well. So when you do your Dropbox, basically what you can see there is that I'm automatically signed in. So if I do need to retrieve files from Dropbox or put files from Dropbox from my Form Simplicity transactions into Dropbox, then you can also have that turned on. Earnest is an app that we have partnered with. All of these are our partners, by the way. And this is a partner that provides us a secure way of asking for escrow funds, basically is what it is. So you can actually go ahead and set that up. And there is a website for you to check out. And if you're interested in signing up for this service, which is included in your Form Simplicity membership, then you are welcome to go ahead and set that up. And then also you have the ability to invite your escrow holding company. So if you have somebody locally here, you can invite them there, and then you can work things electronically using the Earnest program. So I'm just kind of going over some of the things just to show you what we have available here. And then also we have Seller's Shield, which is a recent addition to the partnership here, and that allows you to invite your sellers to make sure that when they do the seller disclosure form, it guides them on how to complete that. Might as well go ahead and activate that and invite them in. That way you're guaranteed to make sure that there's nothing that was left out. Okay, it's going to guide them exactly there. Think of Seller Shield as Car Shield. Okay, you're shielding yourself from liability, and therefore now there's no excuse for your sellers to complete the seller's disclosure accurately.
So they can fill it out right from?
Well, I'll show you in the transaction where they have that option. Do you guys do tenant placement or rentals?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we have a partner that is called Rent Spree. This is going to be the company that if you activate it, and again, it's included in your Form Simplicity membership, where you can actually do your credit report. You can do your rental application, criminal background, eviction proceedings. Okay, and we'll show you where that will show up in your transaction as well. So that gives you the ability, and the credit report is $38, which would be applicable to the applicant. They would be the ones paying for that. Okay, and then last but not least, we all like to get a pat on the back. You want to rate yourself. You want to get those client reviews. That's also included in here as well. Okay, so if you want to get your Rate My Agent, just sign up for it. It's already included in your Form Simplicity membership, and that way you can start getting your reviews accordingly. If you already have Rate My Agent, you're paying for it, well, use this now. Okay, that way you can get your client reviews at no additional cost to you. And that's all I'm going to talk about in my preferences. There's a lot more in here, but I know your time is valuable too. You got to go out and do your real estate. But I'm going to go ahead and at least cover these important points, which I thought was important. Okay, and then one more thing I want to mention here is that you might consider, and I don't know if you all have done that. Again, we're all kind of spread out here and also online. But how many of us have created contacts in Form Simplicity? Many. And I'm assuming everybody has here too. And when you put in contacts, we're not talking by just putting in buyers and sellers. You also might want to put in plumbers. You might want to also put in home inspectors, because you can invite them into a transaction, because there's a button in the transaction detail page that allows you to put service providers in there. So I would recommend that you put in contacts. And the way to put in contacts is just like the way you see it here. All you have to do is to type in the contacts. Let's say I'm going to put in here, first name is Mira, and the last name is Mar. So I'm working with Mira Mar. Okay, city, Miramar. Okay, anyway, that was bad. Anyway, I would recommend that you put in the contact information and fill it out as much as you can. Now, if you're not going to fill all this stuff out, I recommend that you at least put in their email address, because without their email address, their names will not show up in the list of signers. That's really, really important. So put in their home email address, their work email address, or put both. So I'm going to go ahead and just put her email address, just her home email address. And also what you can do here is put notes about the person too. That's one of the features that a lot of Florida Realtors like, and some of the other out-of-state clients that I've been working with. So maybe, so you have Mira Mar, her husband's name is Rex Mar, and they have three children. They have an overweight dog, and they're high-maintenance buyers. You can also put their birthday if you want, January 15th, 1974. Anything else particular to that client is all here for you to type. And there's no limitation, because if you notice there's this little arrow here, I can make this longer as I need it to. So you can put whatever you think you need to put about that client. It's always good to know about your client. That way, if you forget, you have it all written here. Then just remember, click on the Create Contacts, and that's how you would add your contacts in manually. But I know you don't have time to sit down and put in 50 contacts manually. So I recommend that you click on Contacts, and there's a button here that allows you to import your contacts. So when you click on Import Contacts, then you can import from your Gmail. So if I click on this and then hit my List Contacts, I don't have to sign in anymore, because I'm already signed in my preferences, so now the names come up automatically. And then you can select all of your contacts, all 55 of them, or I can pick and choose the ones that I want by just selecting the name, or clicking on the checkbox to select the name. But be careful, do not import the same thing over and over again, or the same people over and over again, because what's going to happen is it won't overwrite the information, it will duplicate the information. So just be careful, do not import X number of times. Now what you can do though, is that you can always, if all you did was import the names, you can always click on this checkbox, delete all of those, and then re-import fresh information, as long as you didn't hand enter the contacts, because if you hand entered them, they would get wiped out and you're not going to be able to retrieve them. But a lot of members, what they suggest they like to do is just import, and then they delete, and then import again, because if you don't do that, it's going to duplicate the name. So like here, I don't have any duplicate. Oh, here, I duplicated the same person twice. So therefore, I would have to delete that duplicate one, whichever one is the older information, and then click on the delete button. If you ever needed to edit their contact information, like I have here anonymity, and just let you all know, I still don't know who she is. So I'm going to click on her name, and then I can modify her information as I see fit. All right? Okay, so let's go ahead and work with a transaction. Have you created forms packages?
Yes.
Okay, so you're all familiar with that. And that's going to be a good thing, all right? Because that's going to simplify your creation of a transaction. You don't have to worry about always adding forms. The forms have already been selected for you. I'm assuming also they've been pre-filled for you, because all of that will be negotiable when you're putting this into a transaction, right? So the way to start a transaction, I think you all know how to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and show it to you anyway, is click on Start a New Transaction, and then you're going to be filling in this part of the information. What I've done here is I'm yanked up here a transaction or a listing from MLS Advantage, and it's an expired listing, so I'm going to go ahead and use that. And now I'm just going to type in my street address. So that's the address that I'm going to be working with in this class this morning. Now the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do here too is check mark this, because it's going to be the same as the address. Now if you have to put anything other than the address, you could still go ahead and put in, let's say, the last name of the client, because all the fields here are editable. Then I'm going to select the property type, and then you have your listing transaction types. You have your transaction types. Listing is one of them if you're the listing agent. Purchase if you're the buyer's agent. Listing and purchase if you have both sides of the transaction. And if you're working a lease in here, that's what you would select. Now, I know probably we're all looking for me to do a purchase, but you know how many pages a contract is? It's 13 pages. And if I had to do an e-sign part of this in this class here, we'd be here till 4 o'clock. So I'm going to be working with a listing form, because it's only 4 pages. I can zip through it pretty quickly, and that way it won't be an issue, and we'll be able to finish here on time. So I'm going to go ahead and work the listing side. Now, just a side note here, whether you're working on the listing side or on the sales side, contract side, the process is exactly the same. The only difference between working a listing and a contract, 2 things. The forms are different, and the transaction participants are different. But the process is exactly the same no matter what side of the transaction you are all working with. Does that make sense? Okay? So that would be something that you want to go ahead and do. And of course, you should see forms packages listed here. And if it's a broker-made one, then you'll see brokerages here with your broker's name appearing here, and then you'll have your list of forms packages. Now, I'm going to be pulling up the one from what I created personally. So if you've created your own, then your usage will be personal, and then the agent's name will appear over here, and then you'll also have your list of all of your forms packages listed here. So I'm going to go ahead and just select this one. It doesn't matter, they're all about the same. Click on the Create Transaction, and once you do that, you're going to see all of those forms populate directly into your transaction detail page, and it is listed all over here, no problem, okay? Now, what I have to do here, because I think I pulled up an out-of-date forms package, so I'm going to go ahead and grab the listing package from the library, because as you know, coming soon, in mid-July, you're going to have listing form changes, and I think they're already starting to make some changes already, because you can see what I've got is already out of date. So I'm going to go ahead and go into here and locate my transaction broker, hit add to the transaction, and then I'm going to bring this all the way up here. Okay? So this is exactly the type of forms that you're going to have similar to what you see on my screen here. Now, if you needed to add additional forms, you can always click on Add Blank Forms. If you needed to add additional forms that might be from the broker packages that you didn't have here, you can always pull them up by selecting, and I'm going to do it over here, by selecting the checkbox and then hitting Add to the transaction. So that is something that you can also be able to do there. But I do want to point out something here, which is, I think, a really cool feature. A lot of members don't know this until I teach this. But notice that every time you create a transaction email address is generated. It's all done by form simplicity. You don't have to do anything. But why am I kind of stressing this? This is an email address that you, for this particular transaction, that you want to incorporate in any email correspondence to your client. So this, let's say I'm working with the sellers, or maybe their relatives. So therefore, I want to incorporate that if I want to email it to them. Why? Because I want them, I'm a delegator, I like to have people delegate. I like to delegate people to do things for me. I'm going to delegate the seller to send me whatever they need to send for this transaction, for their, like maybe a specific paperwork, or maybe the ability, deeds, or whatever, whatever type of paperwork you would get. Well, I'm going to delegate them to email it to this transaction email address, because where it's going to go, it's going to land right here in the file section of that transaction. I think that's pretty cool. What about one of you all may have a buyer's offer for me? You're going to say, hey, Kaz, what's a great email address to send you my buyer's offer? Guess what? Again, I'm a delegator. I'm not going to give you my email address. If it's pertaining to this transaction, I'm going to go ahead and give you this email address, so that way you can send that buyer's offer right into the file section. And if there's an email correspondence that came along with that email, with that attachment, then that email will be listed under email history. So I can read the correspondence, and the file will show up under the file section. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because in the beginning of this session, we talked about setting up email notifications. Well, when I receive a buyer's offer into that transaction, and I selected when I receive an email message or an attachment, I'm going to get that notification on my phone. And it's going to say, Kaz, you got mail. And then I can actually see that buyer's offer on my phone without me running back to my office, back home, and opening up my form simplicity, because there's going to actually be a link in that email. I think it's pretty cool.
It's very important, because you're supposed to present all offers to your clients, and here it's documented that you did send it to that seller.
Correct.
So it's very important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's that way you can kind of see that you can get that notification. And I don't know if you all have created it in your package, but I recommend that you also create folders. That's a great way of organizing your files. So in my example that I have here, I created in my package a folder called Signed Documents. So once everyone signs everything, I could put that in my Signed Document folder, keep everything all organized. Or, like you said, you have multiple offers. Well, then I can go ahead and take that and put that into offer one. And then when you do that, and I'm not going to do it with this one, but let's say I do this and I drag it up here, I could put that as an offer that I received, and then I can go ahead and edit that folder, and let's say that the buyer that I received the offer from, his name is Just In Case. And then I can go ahead and hit Update Offer. And I can put multiple folders just for that. That's a great way, again, of organizing your transaction. I know it may be a little extra work to do this, but I think in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of headache having to find out where everything is in the file section.
Actually, it's quicker.
It is.
It is quicker.
It is.
They do it the old-fashioned way.
Because the fact of the matter is, because if you don't have everything folded up in folders and organized like I'm showing you here, then I think that you're going to have a tough time finding where everything is. Because I know I was working with a member about a year or so ago, and this is before the folders came about, and she had things all over the place, and I couldn't find, okay, now which one is the current contract? Well, I don't know. I have to open up each one. Here you can set this all up in folders. So in the long run, I think that this was a great feature that was added about a year or so ago. And as long as you put that in your forms packages, it automatically will get transferred over to a transaction. Any questions so far? Cool. Yes?
How big is the file, this email?
Okay, so what's the maximum file size that the email address can take? I believe it can take up to, I'm going to say 10 megabytes.
But you guys have an unlimited where you can upgrade your, what you purchase.
Correct.
And you've got unlimited.
Correct, but when it comes into the transaction, there is a limitation of 10 megabytes.
So it wouldn't pertain to Guillermo. Got it.
Yeah, because it's the file size that goes into a transaction. Now, anything else, what we're talking about, I think what you're talking about is unlimited storage.
Right, unlimited storage.
Correct, but here, when you want to bring things from an email address to here, it cannot exceed no more than 10 megabytes.
Usually those are just offers that you're countering. They're not big anyway.
They're not that big anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
I think if
you're
you're
not worried about them.
Exactly. So I think you should be in pretty good shape. You had a question, ma'am?
Hi. Thank you. When it's working with buyers, I have a difficulty that when I create a transaction, instead of putting the full address, because sometimes you have to make multiple offers and I want to have them all together. Instead of putting the full address, I'm saving them under a name. Then I want to replicate that in case that doesn't work. Like I just want to write on top of it.
Yes.
And it will simplify it for me, and then I'll download it to PDF or whatever. Is there a way of doing that?
Okay, so let's say what you're talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong. Let's say you had a buyer and the buyer walked away from the contract. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No?
I'm talking about the initial stage when you're showing houses and you're putting offers and they're not accepted. Every time I have to go back to form.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Write a new offer.
Okay.
I don't want to have the other ones, like I can have them as a point of reference, but I don't hear from them anymore. So I don't want to have like 10 documents, right?
Okay.
So I usually want to read right on top of the one that was in.
Okay, I got a solution for you. Well, remember, I created offer folders, offer 1, offer 2, right? So what you're going to do, and let's make believe that these are all related to a contract. This is a listing, but make believe these are all contract stuff. So what you have to do, because I would like to keep history of what has happened with this transaction. So what I would do is I would highlight all of those forms, click on copy to files, so those files will get loaded over here. And then you can then go into the contract and redo the contract. Retype the name, retype the offer, and then down here you're going to select all of those forms that we copied from the forms to the file section, and then put them into a file here. And you may want to call this, I'm sorry, let's say you want to call this, let's say that,
Name and date.
say it again.
By the last name or the name
Okay,
and date.
so then just put the name and the date that they made the offer, and then move on to the next buyer, and then just retype the buyer's name up on the form. I'm assuming that's what you're asking me for.
Yeah,
So it's a copy paste.
Yes. What do you
Yeah, what I'm doing here, it's actually a copy and paste, but I'm actually copying these forms with the old buyer to the file section. And then once I do that, I put them into a folder.
Okay.
And then I can go into here, open it up, and now put in the new buyer information.
Yeah, because we don't want to lose them.
You want to keep
We don't
history.
wanna lose them.
You want to keep the history,
Yeah.
and you want to keep a flow. That's what I would recommend that you do. And that's the easiest way of doing it.
Then you come back a month later, 3 weeks later.
You don't know, and then you can always bring them back.
Precisely.
So yeah, so that's a good thing. And then while we're at it too, how many of us would try to do addendums and then it says, sorry, but it won't let you upload the addendum? Has anybody had that problem where you try to upload an addendum?
Oh, yeah, yeah. You got to PDF it.
Correct, but, all right, what happened here? Okay, let's try this again. That's what you get for our live TV. All right, here we go. Come on, come on. No. Okay, here we go. So, yeah, so basically what you just need to make sure, okay, I think I answered your question. I think I just lost my train of thought because I was worried about this. Let's say that we had an addendum, okay, and you try to add another addendum form to the form section. Well, guess what? It's going to give you a message saying, sorry, you can't do that. So how do you do that? Same thing we did with her situation. You would do the same thing with the addendum. You would take that addendum, copy it to the file so you could keep history of it down here, and then you just retype the information on the new form. And it's going to go to as a PDF. And then the nice thing about it, you can change the name of the file. You can say addendum 1, change in list price, or addendum 2, extension, whatever you want to put there.
And sometimes we do have, depends on the format when they're coming in.
Right.
You might have to change the format.
Correct. Correct.
To the PDF because it won't accept it.
Correct. So, but at least, yeah, because PDF is universal, and so therefore it would show up in the file section. But that's something that also we have members who say, hey, I try to upload an addendum and it's giving me a message. Sorry, you can't do it. So the best way of handling it is taking, in fact, let me go ahead and show you that. That way I think it's good that you see how it works. All right, so we're going to do blank addendum, if I can find it. I'll just type in addendum. Did I miss the addendum here?
Yeah.
I think it's the way to, okay. So make believe we're doing an addendum to the contract, even though this is not an addendum. So if but I was trying to do another one here. Hang on a second here. Because, okay, maybe it's this one. Check this out, hit add to the transaction. So now I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just type something here. Okay, I'm going to hit save. Then I'm going to go ahead and add another addendum. Come on, come on.
And it could be something someone sent you.
Yes.
Well, too.
Well, that's true, but if I wanted to update the information, though, see, it said, oh, it did. So for a contract, it should automatically give you the option. But if you're working on a listing addendum, it's not going to give you that option. You're going to have to save that first addendum for the listing. Oh, I know what it was. It was the modification to the listing agreement. That's what messed me up here. So then if I try to do it a second time, okay, that's what I was looking for. Give me a moment here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just put something here, and I'll just type something. And hit save. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then we're going to go ahead and try add another modification here. Of course, when I go too fast, it doesn't load the library very quickly. So then I'm going to scroll down here, do the modification. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and check mark that, add that here. See, it says you may not add more copies of the form, the modification to the listing agreement. So then what I have to do is take this, hit copy to files, so I can keep that history of that modification I did. And so now that history is down here, and now I can go in and modify that listing agreement to say, okay, it's something else. Okay, does that make sense? So that's what you have to do. There are going to be some forms that will work, like the addendum to the contract. I can have more than one copy of that. But for the modification, you're going to have to save it to files, and then you can just fix it up as you need to. That's kind of how the process works. Okay. Okay, so we have that, and then you can also upload additional files over here. So you can see, you can go from your laptop computer, like in my case here, if you have a Dropbox account, and if you open up Google Drive, since I don't have to sign in because I already signed in my preferences, it opens up my Google Drive automatically, and I can retrieve anything I want from there. All right, so now I do want to mention something. If I open up a listing and I'm completing my listing agreement, and once I finish filling that out and I hit the save button, who could tell me how do I go to my next form if I needed to go to another form? Does anybody know what to do?
Hit the little X button.
You hit the little X, and then you click on the other form, right? Well, that is very 90-ish. I'm sorry. There's a much better way. And you know what? Notice over here on the very right-hand side, there's a Forms tab. When you click on that Forms tab, you're able to navigate from one form to another without exiting out of the form display.
Sitting here.
There you go. See, this, a lot of people don't notice that forms. They think it's something else. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then also what I want to mention here too, if you know that you're going to be e-signing just this one form, you can actually click on e-sign right from here without going into the checkbox and do that. Now, if you're going to do more than one form, okay, if you're going to do more than one form, then you have no choice but to go and check mark these boxes and then hit e-sign over here. But if you're doing that one form, then you can do it right from that command line on above that form. Okay? That is pretty, I think, pretty awesome.
It is nice.
Also, before I forget, also over here on the left-hand side, you see here that we have this little floating toolbar, which is your primary access sidebar. These 5 buttons that you see here are the same 5 buttons that you see along the side here. The reason why we have this is more for convenience, and sometimes maybe you're off the screen and now, oh, I want to hit add blank forms. I can hit add blank forms right from that button there. That's all it is, not a big deal of any kind, okay? If you wanted to, you can click on this little button here, this camera button, to upload a picture if you wanted to include a picture. One picture only. It could be any picture you want. It could be the backyard. Maybe it's butting against a lake. Maybe you have a lanai with a pool, you know, things like that. Whatever picture you want, but it's only one picture. And of course, the file size cannot exceed more than 4 megabytes. However, there is an internal algorithm that Form Simplicity has that if the picture that you took is larger than 4 megabytes, as long as it doesn't exceed 10 megabytes, it will automatically compress it to the 4. However, if the file size says the photo's too large, that's probably because you're using your iPhone 15 with that titanium thing, and therefore it's not going to accept that file size. Well, I just want to mention to you here too, in case you do have that issue, there's a little bonus website I'd like to point out to you that has been vetted by the Tech Helpline, and that is called iloveimg.com. And when you click on that, it's a free website. I love free, okay? So when you check this out, you can actually resize your photo, you can compress it, you can crop it, and you can do anything you need to do with that. Again, it's free, and that's it. And of course, there's also a sister website called ilovepdf.com. And then you all probably know about that one. But there's an image one. So that way with the image, you can go ahead and compress it however way you think you need. And then once you set that up, all we got to do is click on the Browse Device. And then I'm going to select this one here, hit Open. And then all you have to do, because obviously this frame here is the same as this frame here, just click, slide it, and there you have it. And it's just going to cut off these two sides. If it's upside down, you can rotate it. If it's the wrong picture, hit the remove button. But here we're going to go ahead and add the property photo, click on it, and now there's the picture. And the property photo has now been added, and there you have it. All right? Notice that I'm in a workflow. All right? I'm in a workflow because we went and set up a couple of things. We also created a transaction. We uploaded a photo. Now we're going to show you how you would import your information depending on the type of transaction you are working on. I'm going to click on Import Property Data. And notice I can put in the property data, one from importing my MLS, or I can import my information from the tax. And now, this is how I did it. You guys decide how you want to do it. But how I used either of them is in this fashion. When you do an MLS search, and I'm going to pull up the MLS number here. This is coming from the Beaches MLS listing. And I chose the right one because this is a $145 million one. So I really got to really save my money up really fast. And I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And I'm going to paste that MLS number right over here. That's all you have to do is type in the MLS number. That's it. So now, all I've got to do is click on Import. It's going to give you the result. Here's the results of that search. Click on Select. And now here is your MLS preview. Now keep in mind, here we see the property address, the information, the listing information, who the seller is, who the brokerage is, and then we have me in here as a buyer's agent because it's asking me to put in my buyer. And also notice here too that I can also include the first picture of an MLS listing. So whatever that picture is, and I already uploaded the photo, this picture will replace that photo if you have that checked. All right, so if you have a wonderful looking picture of a sunrise because it's facing the Atlantic Ocean, then you don't want to include that in there. But why would I want to import from MLS? Well, that would be only if I'm writing a contract. So if I'm putting a contract, I'm making an offer on this listing, on this transaction. So therefore, I would use this when I'm writing a contract. But because what's going to fill in here will be the property information. And then on the last page of the contract, it's also going to put in the listing sales associate along with their brokerage name. And then also it'll put your name as the cooperating sales associate and the cooperating brokerage name. But that would be if you're writing a contract. But I know what you're all thinking. That information may not be accurate. Maybe something is not correct. Well, I got to tell you, my broker, when I used to be a realtor, at least the last brokerage I worked for, the broker gave me these two words: due diligence. You got to do your due diligence. You still have to do your due diligence when you're importing from the tax. You don't know if that information is accurate either. All right? Always do your due diligence, because I still did that, and I still included information from MLS. I just needed to verify things that were in MLS. You're going to have to take the extra couple of minutes to do this, because if you don't, then you still will have it incorrect. So once you have this all correct, then you are going to go ahead and save that to your contracts. But we're not working on a contract, are we? We're working on a listing. So my option there would be I would always import from the tax. That's kind of what I would do. So again, I would click on Import Property Data, and I would import the tax. Let me just see what the address was again. Banyan Road. Okay, good. So then all I would put in here would be, the tax would be here. I'm going to do the address, the house number, and then the name of the street. That's all I would put up there. I wouldn't go no deeper than that, because if you start putting in every field, you don't know how the county data entry person may have put that in. So less is more. I'd rather get 2 or 3 than 0 if I fill in every single field. But I do have to select the county, because the county always will be Alachua, since that's the first county in alphabetical order. So we are in Palm Beach County, and I select Palm Beach. That's all I ever typed in there. Once I do that, I hit Define Tax Data. There's the result. That was very quick. Now, it could be that maybe it could have been Banyan Avenue, but at least I found Banyan Road. You may have at least 2 or 3 results. All you do is click on the Select button, and notice there's no brokerage information. And in fact, look at this. I got an LLC. Has anybody gotten an LLC when you're doing that? We'll show you how to do that. So then I'm going to go ahead and click on the Save Information to the Transaction. And now it's taking, and it says your changes are being saved. So it's because it's populating all of the forms. So it usually takes about 5 seconds or so, because it's filling out all the number of forms that I have. And once that gets done, then it gets added into here. And you can see the circle is circling, so that means it's doing its thing. Any questions while we're waiting? Actually, it's taken a little bit longer than I wanted to, but there we go. So now, when I open up my listing agreement, it's going to automatically have that information already pre-filled. See how it looks? Perfect. It's got the legal description. It has everything else in here. That, I think, is a great thing to have. Any questions before we go on with the transaction participants? And by the way, whatever you import will auto-populate all the other fields too. It's not just the listing agreement. If I open up the seller disclosure, the address will be there as well, okay? Because as you know, the sellers have to fill out the seller's property disclosure form itself. Okay, let's go on to the next section, and we're going to go ahead and talk about transaction participants. And as you can see here, we have an LLC or a trust, right? How do you handle that? Well, I'm going to show you how to handle that right now. But before I do that, I want to just mention that in the transaction participants folder, we have the ability to add seller parties if you're working on a listing, which I will be doing that right now. If you're working on a contract, you'll be doing the add buyer parties. And then you also have the option to add service providers. So let's go ahead and work with adding this seller parties. So as you can see, this is okay up here, but it is not okay down there, because can Florida Estates LLC sign? No, because it's an entity. You got to find what? The representatives, right? Probably go to sunbiz.org or .com or whatever that is, check out who it is, and also contact the company and say, hey, who's authorized to sign? And I'd like to have it in writing. That's what I would recommend that you do. Get it in writing, say, okay, so-and-so is going to be signing for us. So, and you want to write this, make a note of this. The first thing you want to go ahead and do is right over here where it says populate from party names. You would like to uncheck that, and I'll explain why in a second. But you definitely want to have this unchecked. And then once you find out who is authorized to sign for them, then you go ahead and fill their information out. So let's say that the president of the company is going to be doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the person's name. His name is Alvarez, okay? And then you're going to type in his email address. Then they have a vice president. His name is Barry Ott, okay? And then you type in his email address. So that means on the listing form, it's going to have Florida Estates LLC, and then on the signature side, it's going to have those two people. Now, because if I left it as, if I checked this and I didn't change it, well, these guys don't own it. It's the LLC that owns it. These guys are just authorized to sign it. That's why you don't want to have that checked, because otherwise, instead of having the LLC appearing here, it's going to have the signer's name, which is not correct. Yes?
If there was a death, no will, it went to probate, the listing would say
The administrator.
Administrator?
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh, you mean to make a title of it, you mean?
Who, would you put the court-appointed administrator of the family, let's say, as the listing?
On a probate, yeah, I would think that's who.
It would be the deceased name with whoever the estate is, and you'll get the paperwork.
It would be
You'll
the
get the probate.
administrator of the
Yeah.
estate.
Yes.
Something that Cass said really super important, and you guys have no idea. Now, we're talking not for simplicity, but more contract law. We need to get it right, exactly who it is.
Right.
So we use the title company and so forth. But, you guys could ask me about that afterwards if you want. But it's really important, because someone sells a property, come back 10 months later, 4 months later, to haunt you that property was sold incorrectly.
Right.
And it wasn't the authorized thing. It happens. Yeah, it's.
Yep. So yeah, it's very.
Pay for that.
Yeah.
Pay for that.
And I always ask this. I always mention this. Always check with your broker if you're not sure on how to do some things, because, like you said, like Ismael said, you got to get it right.
Yeah.
We all may have played an attorney on TV, but not in real life. All right. So please make sure you check with the broker, because the broker is responsible too. Okay. So yes, make sure that's all done. All right. Any other questions on this? Okay. Now, I'm going to get out of this for a moment, and I'm going to do something else. How many of us sometimes get more than 2 sellers or more than 2 buyers on a contract on the buyer side? Does anybody get those? Yeah, we got a couple of hands going up. Well, we have an option here for you if you don't know already. As you can see, there are 2 seller parties automatically set up, right? So on the exclusive right of sale listing agreement, how many sellers can sign automatically and initial automatically on that form? I heard it. 2, correct. And then same thing on the contract side. How many buyers are there spaces for the buyers to automatically sign? 2, right? So that's exactly how we have form simplicity program, based on how many spaces there are on those forms. But we had people who said, hey, I got more than 2 sellers or more than 2 buyers. How do I put them in? Well, that's very easy, because right up here, there's a button that says Add Additional Seller Parties. When you click on that Add Additional Seller Parties, in addition to the 2 sellers, you can add up to 6 more sellers. Or on the buyer side, up to 6 more buyers. So that way you have that option.
Yeah, we've done them manually. I didn't.
You can. Yeah, that used to be the old-fashioned way, but this way, and then of course all the parties that you have in here automatically will go into eSign. Now the only thing that you have to remember though is you just answered my question. How many spaces are there going to be for sellers? You said 2, so the first 2 sellers will automatically get populated. The other sellers that are behind them, you're going to have to drag and drop where they have to initial and sign. That you cannot do anything about until something changes with the forms, which it will allow more than 2 sellers. That's what we have to do, okay? So we'll show you how to do that when we're in the eSign session. And then we also talked about adding contacts into form simplicity. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add contacts for my purposes here, so that way we can go ahead and work with dummy names. I don't like to use real people in my example when I do these classes, so I'll just go ahead and set up 3 sellers, okay? So let's say that the first seller, his name is Marshall Law. So I'm going to click on his name, and then there's his email address. He is seller number 1. If I chose the wrong seller, I click on remove. Then his wife, her name is Marsha Mello. So I'm going to click on her name, There's the seller 2. There's her email address. And they have a son. His name is Court Marshall. And when I click on Court Marshall, notice he doesn't have an email address, but he doesn't have a home one, but he has a work one, okay? And then you add these 3 sellers into that transaction participant. But I'm going to hold off just for a second here because I want to let you all know. eSign is one of the few platforms that allow the same email address to be assigned to each individual person. And that's a good thing, because how many of us deal with an elderly couple that only have one email address? I can see you right now telling them, I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're going to have to create an email address. Oh, yeah, sure. In your dreams, Kaz, right? So basically, having the same email address is a good thing, okay? But then I know what you all are thinking. You're thinking, saying that, well, you know, if you give each of those the same email address, what makes you think one can sign for the other? I got a quick story here. My wife and I had to co-sign for our son when he purchased a house 5 years ago because his loan-to-debt ratio wasn't where it needed to be. So the lender told me, okay, what email address are you going to be using? Okay, I'll use my work email address. And then my wife, she used our home email address. But guess what? Our home email address, we have webmail. I can go into our account and sign for my wife. So what am I going to say to that is that if there's a will, there's a way, right? So that can happen, all right? So just be careful that it's going to happen, and it's a good thing. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Contacts, click on that button there, and you see all of that information gets populated in. It has my brokerage from the forms package, and also it has my broker's name and my agent's name. Now, this is something new that came about the last couple of weeks that you may or may not be aware of. But on either side, the seller or the buyer side, there's also now a co-agent option. So you can actually put your co-agent if you're working with a co-agent here. That was never available up to about 2 weeks ago. So if you want to put a co-agent name in here to be part of that transaction, you can go ahead and do that. Yes?
When we add a co-agent, will that co-agent have access to that specific?
No. The only way that that's going to happen is if the broker creates a team. So if you have an agent and co-agent that works together, then the broker can actually set it up where the broker allows both the agent and the co-agent to see each other's transaction and to be able to go into and modify that transaction. But that has to be done at a broker level. But it can be done at that time. But without that, you're not going to be able to do that. You just have to type in the co-agent's name and then invite the co-agent to sign. That would be the way to handle that. Okay? Great question. And like I said, this is just new within the last couple of weeks. Okay, I can also go up here too, by the way, and put in what would appear on the first line of the listing agreement. Let's say a married couple or husband and wife, however way you all want to identify that. Okay, because that's what's going to appear on the top. But these here are what's going to be in the signature section. Okay, and then once you have all of that done, click on the Save Seller Information, and now all of that is going to be included in the Transaction Participant section, but also in all of the forms that we have in the Forms section. Now, this is a third way of creating a transaction. Since I have these two already in my contacts in Form Simplicity, and it says Update Contact with a check mark there, I recommend that you click on the X. Do not save it, because if you hit the Save button, it's going to duplicate the names in your contact section. The only time I would hit the Save button is if it has the Add New Contact checked. That way you can add new contacts on the fly. All right, but I'm just going to hit X, and now we have all of the necessary parties for this transaction. Pretty cool. Now, there are other features that we have here, which we're not going to have time to cover, but you can check out the how-to videos, and it shows you how to create tasks in here, how to use collaboration, which is Form Simplicity's negotiating platform, and then also the notes. But that's something that we're not going to have time, because that's going to be another half an hour to maybe 45 minutes. And I know we want to just learn the basic shortcuts on how to do your transaction. Okay? All right, so now we have our transaction participants. What's our next step? We're going to do e-sign. All right, so that's the moment we've all been waiting for. So here, all I'm going to do is work with a listing agreement. And notice that as soon as I click on a form, you see how my menu changed. So now it changed from the primary access menu to now the select command menu, which is over here. All right? And so therefore, I'm just going to go ahead and select a form, click on e-sign, and now here are the people involved. Oh, I forgot one thing. I always forget this. Sorry about that. I wanted to show you how you can also add service providers. So if I click on Add Service Providers, here are the service providers that you can add. You can add an escrow company, title company, lending company, closing company, appraisal company. Because in case you, let's say if you're working on a contract and you want to go ahead and send a copy of the contract to the appraisal company, you can actually go ahead and do that and have them be a CC. I mean, they're not going to sign the document, but they can at least get a copy of it. See, so you can make that happen there as well. So let's say for this example, let's say I'm going to add a lending company, and the name of the company, actually I'm going to use the appraisal company. Not that we would need it in this example, but just to show you how it works. I have an appraisal company here. So my person's name is High Bar, and therefore I change my service provider from escrow to appraisal, and then hit Add Contacts, and then you can go ahead and say, okay, who does he represent? And so therefore, when you do that, all you have to do is now select seller, for example here. But most cases, you're going to work on the buyer side and therefore on contract. And then it's going to think a little bit, and now that's going to be added. This company here will be added as part of the sellers. All right? And there it is. All right? That's how it goes. So now let's go ahead and try that e-sign one more time. I always forget the step about the service provider, so I apologize for that miscue there. And then we're going to go ahead and click on the listing, hit e-sign. Here we go. That's what I wanted to see. So here you can see the appraisal company, and if they need to get a copy of that contract, you can make sure that they're checked. This is great for your administrative assistant or transaction coordinator. Notice that she's included automatically, so that way as soon as the signing is finished, Lisa's going to go ahead and get it. See, so that's a good thing to have that set up in each individual preferences. Okay, it's got, each agent has to do this. Okay. Now, by the way, after the signing is completed, you're not going to get, the administrator is not going to get, after each person signs, they get the final document. Okay, so if there's 4 signers, then after all the 4 signers sign, then that person who's CC will get the document. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and just undo these guys so that way we can complete this at a reasonable time. So as you can see here, I'm going to have the 3 sellers and the agent. I'm going to click on Create New eSign 2.0 Session, and now it's going to take us out of Form Simplicity into eSign. So if there is a problem that you realize that you're in eSign, that something needs to be corrected, and it can't be, and I don't think you want to cross it out and put the new information in, because that doesn't look professional, then you would have to cancel out of this and go back into Form Simplicity. Because once you leave Form Simplicity, you can't not make any more changes to your forms. Okay? So here we see seller number 1. Here's seller number 2. And then we have the seller's agent. Now you're saying, well, what happened to seller 3? Well, remember what we talked about before. How many spaces are there automatically for sellers to sign or initial. And we said 2, and that's exactly what we have. If we had 3 or 4 places, then you see seller 1, 2, 3, and 4. But we don't see that happening here at this time. And then I'm going to hit the next button, and notice that my broker, in my case, my make-believe broker, is not going to sign my listing forms. My broker says, Kaz, you take care of it. Okay, fine. So then I'll leave the broker out of it. When I click on the next button, you're going to get this little message here that says, okay, you didn't include the broker information. Are you still wanting e-sign to remove all of the places where the broker would initial or sign? And then I would say, yes. Now, do you have to sign everything? No, okay. So therefore, we're doing the same thing here. So it's not required that the broker sign. It's up to the individual brokerages that handle that. Now, this whole section that I'm showing you here is all step number 1. There are 3 steps in e-sign. This is the first step. Notice that the transaction is automatically included, but you do have to put in the session title. The session title is the same as the recipient's email that says subject, that has the subject line. So you have to put something in here in the session title. I kept it simple. I just highlighted the transaction name and I just pasted that in there. And if you want, you can always put in here seller package, just to keep it separate from any other e-signs that you might be running. You may be running a counter offer e-sign session, all right, or whatever. Then you would type in your message. Please review, initial, and sign at the designated places. If you have any questions, contact me. But here we see our email signature. And where did that come from? That came from way back here under General Settings. And then there is your email signature that popped it. Yes?
What did the tab say that you pushed? I can't really see.
The tab to go into e-sign?
Yeah.
Okay.
The one to go to the general setting to do
preferences up here.
Preferences.
Yep. I click on that preferences button, and then your general settings, and then you're going to go to your e-sign email signature section.
You know, you can change it always too. During the holidays, Happy 4th of July.
Yeah.
Happy Mother's Day. It's always something real nice that's personal, it's touching, you know. Happy Father's Day. I don't know. Memorial Day.
Sure.
You know, you can always go in there and just change it for the whatever event's going on.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so I mean, you could be you could put a standard message here if you want. But keep in mind, that standard message will also go to e-sign. So you got to make sure that it makes sense for both systems. Okay? But you can do that. Absolutely. Good. Guys, I didn't even think about that. Good thought. Okay. Then we have options. Here you see reminder notices. You can actually send reminder notice for those people, like buyers, may have cold feet. You know, you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting, and meanwhile, you're waiting for a couple of days and you haven't heard from them, and you're wondering if they want to go and purchase this property. Well, then you can always decide to set reminder notices to the signers, to the buyers maybe. I recommend that you do it once a day, and they'll get it first thing in the morning, every day. And you can also decide how long you're going to let this go for. So if, let's say, you started this today, maybe you're going to give them till the 3rd. And if they don't sign by the 3rd, it's done. So that's something that you can do as well. That's something that is available, and you can use that if you wish. But this is the first section here. Now, notice here that we have our recipients. And remember that under Preferences, under e-sign preferences and templates, we set the default ordering to yes. Remember that, because that's what some people said they would prefer on a default basis. But maybe you don't want it for this session. You want to turn it off, so that means all of them are going to get it at the same time. That's going to be a decision that you're going to decide there. Now, my question, I'm going to send it to Ismael again. Do you have to review any of the paperwork?
No.
Okay, so then I don't have,
Unless they want it,
unless they want you to, because the broker actually, you have the ability here to review the paperwork before it goes to the signers.
Yeah.
So
I would have no life.
you would, oh, come on, you don't have a life now,
I
right?
don't have a life. I have a decent life. That's it.
Okay.
Guys,
But I'm just saying, if that was ever the case, you can do that. I mean, because if you notice under the recipient type, besides the signer, there's also a reviewer.
we can skip that one.
And then, okay. But I'm saying we can make the broker the reviewer, and then, but that's for but that's not to be for each session. It could be for just a few of them.
No.
And then we have the CC recipient. That would be for that appraisal company to get them a copy of that. So you can include them there as well, right? So that's something that you can go ahead and do.
No,
But
they do send it to me, and I'll review it. We'll make corrections or additions.
okay. Here, I think what you, okay, but let's just say you do want a reviewer. I'll show you how the process works, and then I'll let you make that decision. I'm going to go ahead and put in my broker who I have working for me. Her name is Anchovy, okay? Now, it's very important to remember, if you want your broker to review something in e-sign, while it's in the e-sign session, the important thing to remember is, one, you need to change your recipient ordering to yes, because if you leave it at no, it doesn't matter. It's going to everybody anyway. But here, if you turn it on, it's going to go in sequential order. But look at this. I can take my broker, put her all the way to the first position, and then make her a reviewer. That's how you would do that. And then once once we start the e-sign session going, Ann's going to be the first one reviewing it. Oh, I don't like something that wasn't done right. So then the broker can actually decline that signing, and then the agent has to do it again. Now, maybe a much simpler way might be, why don't you have your agents email you the paperwork, and then you can review it, and then if there's any changes, it saves them having to redo the whole thing again. So that could be an option there, but this is how the reviewing process works, okay? But I'm just going to go ahead and delete that person here. I also recommend that you may also decide to have your contacts review the paperwork before they sign it. And how do I do that? And I'm just going to do it with Marshall. I'm not going to do it for all of them. If I click on the action ellipsis here, and I'm going to click on edit, there is a notification that says document review. If I turn that on, that means that he's going to be reviewing the document first before he starts signing. In other words, he has to scroll through the entire document before he can start the signing process. So also what I want to show you here too, remember we had assigned the same email address to all of the signers? You can actually go in here and authenticate that. You can go ahead and give each person maybe a PIN number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The second one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The other one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Whatever. So that could be something that you can do, or even simpler probably is to use their cell number for each signer, and then when they receive it and they open it up, they will get a verification code, and then you just enter that verification code. That could be something you might want to try to do. But that's a decision that you're going to make that. You're going to make that decision. I'm going to click on the Save button here, and I'm going to show you how the first signer will review it. And then we have our listing form. We're good. Let's go ahead and click on the Next button. And when I click on the Next button, it's going to take me to step number 2. And all you have to do is work with the form. So, as you see here, the initials are being populated automatically by e-sign. See, all the signatures are all there and everything. But now, how do I put in the third seller, right? Because we have the seller number 3 to put in here. Well, what you're going to have to do is click on this drop down, click on the third seller, and then you have initials, and then just drag them here. Very simple. Wherever you want to place them, I guess you could place them what you think. And then when it's time for the signature, I would probably, maybe if you have room up here, you could probably stick it right up like there. And then the date comes out to be date and time. So how do I change that date and time to just be the date? Just remember, there's the gear. So when you click on the date, which I did, click on the gear, click on the date and time, and change that to date only. So that way it could be consistent with the other dates. And then hit the save button. Settings have been saved. And then just go ahead and like so. And then do the initials on the last page.
I've had questions, and maybe you could help us with this. But I've gotten many calls on that, where realtors want to change the font because of the name.
That was in the change the font here.
Here.
There is no option here to do that, but the signers have the ability to edit the font, and I'll show you where that is.
You're right.
Yeah, because it's all going to be.
Yeah, you're right.
You were just testing me, I know.
No. I've gotten those questions.
Yeah, but that's what it is.
There's been, in Latin people, there's much longer names than it don't.
Yes, and if you needed to make it longer, you can make it longer this way, and you can always change the font size here too.
Yeah.
So if it's like way too long, then you can shrink it, the font type.
Exactly.
Actually,
I've just told them.
yeah. So if all you have is the font size, you don't have the font ability to. Not here. Yeah. But the signers do. The signers do, and I'll show you how the signers do it for everybody else here too. Also, if you're working on a contract and you receive an offer and something needs to be struck through, that's where you have your markups option here. See, I can do this, and I can go up here, and on a contract, I can strike through everything as I need to. But you have to do that for each line. You know, drag and drop each line to strike through whatever needs to be struck through. Okay. Also, you can underline and you can also highlight. But let's say I forgot to put something here, and I don't want to start the whole e-sign all over again. Well, guess what? You're in good shape, because let's say I had to put something here, and you notice there's nothing there under additional terms. We're good, because I can click on the add text, I can start putting it here, and I can start typing away. And that way I don't have to start the whole e-sign session over again. Now, if I, for some chance, had a price, there's no price here, but let's say if there was a price, I don't think you want to do a strike through and put the new price there. That doesn't look nice. In that case, you're going to have no choice but to start over again. Because as I said, once you leave form simplicity, you cannot make changes to the forms. But at least if you forgot to add something, like maybe I did forget to add the price here, so guess what? I can still always add the price right here, because it's blank. Okay, but if there's a price there, or maybe there's a problem with the legal description, well, it's too late. You're going to have to get out of it and redo that form again, and then start the whole process once again. Because just like with any program, once you leave one program to go into another program, the only thing you can do in e-sign is just work with the signatures and the signers.
Yeah. Any additional information, you can always add it.
Correct, but it's only if it's blank. Right. See, I forgot to put personal property, I can always add text. Add text is your savior. Okay, so just remember that. All right, then this is all step number 2. Step number 3 are these 2 buttons here. I can go ahead and preview it, and I can click on view my message to make sure I want my message to read accordingly. If I need to change it, then I hit the back button 2 times and go back to the first step and change the message, and then just keep moving on to the forward. But if the message is fine, then I just click on this. Then I get to view all of my forms, make sure everything is the way it needs to be, and if it looks good, I'm now ready to send it out for signing. So now it's going out to all of the signers, And I'm going to close some of these windows up so it doesn't take storage. I want to make sure I'm selecting the correct stuff. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and open up my email. So now I'm going to play the Academy Award of the seller, having the seller sign. So I'm going to go ahead and click on check my email. There is my first invitation because it's going in order. Marshall is going to be the first one signing. There's the message that's going to come from the agent. If the signer doesn't know how to use the e-sign program, they can watch a 5-hour video. No, it's 5 minutes. It's only a 5-minute video. I don't think they can stand 5 hours. Okay. And then here's that example of where we clicked on document review for that one signer. So you want to do that for all of your signers. You want them to review the document. Now, notice that it says continue, but it's grayed out. Well, they won't be able to click on the continue button until they scroll all the way to the bottom. That's probably what they'll do. How many of us, when we used to install Windows, how many of us read the terms of agreement? You just scrolled straight down, right? So they're probably going to do the same thing here, all right? I'm guessing. I'm hoping not, but that could be.
You're absolutely right.
You know, I've dealt with customers. I know exactly how they are. And then they say, I never read that. Well,
Some.
okay. They can also decline to sign this, having reviewed this. But in order for them to continue, all you got to do is click on the continue button, and now it takes them to this screen. And as soon as they clicked on that review and sign button, remember in the beginning of the class we said about doing the notifications in the e-sign, where we selected the session started. Now you're going to get that email notification that the session has started. Then they have to agree to the disclosure, hit the start signing button, and now the second email notification is now they're viewing the form. Okay? I don't know if you hear my little bling in my iPhone, but that's my Gmail, and all of that is being sent directly there. All they do now is click on the next button, and that's it. Very simple, very easy, and I'm going to go through the motion here. And then if they're done, they forgot something. So if they forgot a place that's required, it's denoted by this red square, then all you got to do is just hit the done button again, and now it's going to go on to the next signer. So I'm going to go through this next few signers quickly here. That way we can talk about one more feature, and then we will be almost completed. So let me get, oops. There's the invite, all right. So then I'm going to review and sign. So I'm going to go through this quickly now. And I'll just look to see if, as I'm doing this, to see if anybody has any questions. Now would be a good time to ask. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving right along. And this is what the signer number 2 will be doing. All right. And the email here. So this is exactly what's going on. And all those 3 notifications you will be receiving, as I mentioned with the first signer, that's what you all will be receiving here. Okay. And so, this is pretty simple. I think the process I'm showing you here kind of simplified it a little bit for you. I think this is a great way of you understanding how the process works. And by the way, I forgot to do this, and I'll do this with my my access, and I have to do that through Gmail. So let me go into Gmail. Here's my part that I've got to sign. What I want to show you is each person has the option to edit their signature. See, I didn't do that with each of them. So let's say I don't like this one. This one, yeah. All right? And that's going to be my signature. And then all I got to do is click on Start, and you see how it fills that in. Now, again, you don't want to make the font too large because you can see that it's right on the line. If it goes larger, it's going to go right below that line. It doesn't look good. All right, so that's mine. And we should be done. All right, so everybody has signed the document. All right? So now I'm going to go ahead and show you what the final result is going to be. The final result going to be is that I'm going to go into my transaction, open up my transaction, and the final results is you're getting the information from the digital signing service. Everyone here, when everyone completes this, all the signers complete their portion of it, all you're going to be receiving is a certificate of authenticity, kind of like a receipt. It's a good thing to, I don't know if you've ever been audited by the state of Florida, but if you ever get audited by the state of Florida, always include this with your paperwork, because this way you can show how the session, when the session was done, how each signer signed, and it gives you the date and time that it was sent to them, they viewed it, they read the disclosure, and they signed it. And then here you have the documents, and then you have the activity in the order that they signed. So in this case, it was sequential order. So it's always going to start with signer 1 on the bottom, and signer, whoever the last signer is, will be up on top. But if you did it in where all of them got it at the same time, then whoever the first signer was will be the first signer on the bottom, and whoever was the last signer will be the last signer up on top. And the nice thing about having the e-sign program is that I can also, by the way, put this into my signed documents folder right from here.
Also, it holds more merit than a liquid signature nowadays.
Absolutely. And yeah, absolutely. And so therefore, because you have an audit trail. Yep. And then, so therefore, once you hit the close button, and then I can go ahead and take this other document and, click on it and drag it to the signed documents folder. I keep everything all organized. All right? Now, what I also wanted to mention here, too, is it may not be, I'm going to open up this one here, even though it's not applicable, but let's say you received three sets of documents in one PDF, and you'd like to keep it separate. You want to separate the PDFs. You have, as an e-sign user, the ability to split your PDFs into however many documents, and then you can go ahead and give it a name. That's a nice thing. That's included in your e-sign form simplicity option. And then you can create the split file, and that way you have that file split up as you need to. That way it's much easier to work with. Also, in form simplicity, if you ever wanted to merge your files, let's say you have, these two files that you want to merge and make them one file, you can actually go here, click on the merge, and give it a name. And merge those two together, have one document, but two in one. So you have that merge option there. I recommend that you don't do the merge in the forms, because if you ever needed to use those in an e-sign, guess what you'll be doing for all of those? You'll be dragging and dropping, because they automatically convert to a PDF, and that's going to be a file, no longer a form. All right, so that's something that we have. And finally, what I want to go ahead and do is, hopefully, all of you are archiving your transactions, because that's very important. So, for example, if you were going to archive a specific transaction, let's say I'm going to use this one here. I got paid, I got my commission check, I want to put this away. So all you have to do is click on the transaction itself, then you hit the Archive Transaction button, and then it's going to ask you, are you sure? Yes. And then when you click on Archive Transaction, I recommend also, it's a two-stepper here, once you do that, you want to go ahead and change your transaction status to closed, or maybe it got rejected. You want to keep all of that paperwork because you want to, in case you ever get audited, you want to make sure you have everything there, whether it's rejected or if it's closed or maybe it got withdrawn. Whatever the situation might be, I recommend that you do it. And also, I'm going to make this close. I forgot to mention this. Anytime you create a listing transaction, since we talked about preferences, and I forgot to go over some of these buttons. As you can see, when I have a listing transaction, notice that there is a button here to invite the sellers to complete the disclosure, which is your seller disclosure form. That's the only time that this button will show up if this is a listing transaction type. Now, when I change this to a purchase, well, that button disappears. If I make this into a lease, I can now do my tenant application and screening options. See, you put that information here. See, this is what you get. $38, you would have that paid by the applicant. And then all you have to do is get the link, and then you just forward that to whoever you got to forward it to. So that's, all of these buttons will appear only based on the type of transaction you're making. So if I did the listing, there's my invite sellers to complete the disclosure form. So everything's pretty much at your fingertips there. And finally, and then we will be done, but just give me one more thing. Let's say we went into my transactions and we had a bunch of these that should have been archived. Are you guys going to just click on each transaction and archive each one? No. There's a much simpler way. If I had, let's say this one was, and this one was, and this one was, should have been all archived, then I would go ahead and make sure I change the status of these 4 to closed. But there's a button up here where I can click on archive, and I can archive all 4 of them at the same time. So if you have, let's say, 50 that needs to be archived, just select those transactions, and then they will go into the archive transaction. So like now, after you're archiving, all you got to do is click on transaction, and then you're going to click on archive transaction, and this is going to give you a list of all of your archive transactions that you have. How long they stay there? Until you take them out. I recommend, for those of us who have the e-sign program, you have unlimited storage, keep them in there forever. I know when I was a realtor, and I think this is the same applies here, you need to keep your files at least 5 years. Brokers, I believe, is 7, right? Or that's that. 5 also? Okay, so 5 and 5. Just keep them in there. I still would keep them in there anyway, past the 5 years. Doesn't hurt. I had to keep my paperwork once I left my real estate brokerage, so that way, in case there was ever a question from my previous broker that I worked for while I was working for Form Simplicity, I still had my paperwork there, and I also had it on my hard drive. So before we conclude, does anyone here have any questions?
Oh, it's extremely helpful.
Well then, if that's the case, I want to say thank you, everybody, for hearing me out here, and hopefully you all learned a lot. If there's anything else you need, don't hesitate to email me at casc@floridarealtors.org. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.